Friday Heaters, welcome to the podcast. We're here with Hannah Hoffman and Bridget Donahue of the now famous Hoffman Donahue Gallery. They used to operate their own individual galleries, but then last year they merged together to form Hoffman Donahue. The gallery represents 44 artists working across a range of disciplines. Many are represented in major museum collections worldwide. They've been a shining light in the industry over this last year amidst a lot of galleries shuttering and closing. Their merger has been a really exciting storyline in the industry. And so we at Friday Heaters are so hyped to have them on the podcast today. It's a conversation that I think a lot of people have been wanting to hear and get a window into all of the process that went into their decision to merge. Really admire their program, their taste. Can't wait to get into it. Let's heat it up. Here we go. Thanks for being here with us, guys.
Thanks for having us, Ben.
Thank you.
Just starting, how do you make money as gallerists?
We sell art.
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember Dave Hickey. He used to have a gallery called A Clean, Well-Lighted Place after the Hemingway story before he became a critic. And he was like, it was the most straightforward, like honest job I ever had. Like they gave me money. I gave them art. It's just so kind of clean and transparent about what was happening there.
Yeah, it's a retail operation. It's like some of the shows I've done, people walk in, you're like, what's going on here? And you have to say, this is for sale, and that we work with, for the most part, like represent living artists who are making all of this work in their studio. And we're usually the first place to get that. We kind of come up with a price. And then once you sell that, you split it with the artist and they put it in their pocket. We pay for everything around it. And that's sort of the deal. And sometimes it seems like a fair deal and other times it doesn't, right? When like those prices kind of change or you see what kind of environment you're in. But for the most part, that 50-50 split that's been existing for so long seems to be always the way that we make it back to this kind of equitable way that we're all spending that money.
So often I feel like galleries still can get critiqued, and when people hear 50-50, they're like, the artist is doing all the work, they're creating everything. What goes into that 50-50, into your half of that work?
I would say everything from when the artist is done, so to say, or it's somewhere finished, right? Picking that work up, bringing it to a venue where we're showing it, documenting it professionally, like whether, photographing it, cataloging it, putting it into a database. So there's a record that we've received that from the artist, it's in our possession, ensuring it while we have it, then hanging it, paying the rent for wherever you're hanging that, and the lights and the staff that is a professional staff beyond myself that would hang it after unwrapping it from a safe archival wrapping, rewrapping it when you're done and buying those kind of fine art materials, storing it somewhere, and then having it at the ready after maybe an exhibition is over for a period of time to then show that and bring it out again and kind of keep its life going and keep it available in like active conversations that we're having with a broad range of people. And I think that's the great part of the gallery too, is you host typically, or gallerists like us, we host exhibitions of that kind of primary moment when that work comes into the world, and then we keep it there to kind of that cross-pollinating audience that's coming through. I might meet you and say, you know what, I've got something for you, and I go back to that shelf where I'm keeping that thing and I can take that nice wrapping off, show it to you, and then that is kind of its extended life beyond the exhibition.
And because most of the exhibitions that we're doing with artists that we aren't just doing a single show with, we are representing them. Our responsibility to the artist extends far beyond what may be most visible to the audience, which is the exhibition. So there's a lot happening behind the scenes. Sometimes we're even assisting or supporting exhibitions that aren't happening at the gallery but are at museums. And so there's paperwork and administrative kind of labor that has to go into that. There's also long-term storage of the artwork. It's not like we take it off the walls and then it goes back to the artist. Sometimes we're storing it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, just because we are responsible for having these safe places where art can stay and be protected. And then, there is that kind of more like wraparound care that we do, which is perhaps like a little bit more analogous to, since we're in LA, like what managers do.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you're really in dialogue with the artist day to day, talking about decisions that they're making that are outside of even the galleries that we are managing.
Just like life coach and everything, I would imagine.
Totally.
Yeah, we tend to be like the first point of contact around an artist practice, kind of regardless of whether it's a museum, a publication, a collector. And the artist does often kind of need us as a bit of like someone to field some of those inquiries and gather initial information about the opportunities, because they're in the studio, they're working, they're absorbing the world, they're in their own craft and practice. And so that's what we can kind of bring to the table, is helping to manage some of just the administrative load around maintaining a practice.
We should probably get into the merger a little bit. So you guys knew each other. When did you first overlap? You worked together when you were younger?
Well, we met prior to that. We met Thanksgiving 2008 through a mutual friend, but just socially.
Yeah.
And then we really reconnected when we both ended up working at Gavin Brown's.
Okay. And then you both eventually develop your own businesses and start your own galleries.
Yeah, Hannah does it first. She left Gavin's and it was like, I'm moving to LA and I'm opening a gallery. And I remember being like, what? You know, like that just felt like, to do both of those things at the same time,
Wild.
like that seemed intense. And I was like, not me. I'm just going to work for Gavin Brown forever. Like that was kind of that was my plan. And then Gavin was going to move spaces and the team was kind of expanding. And there was that moment. I had kind of this look in the mirror, like, what's my path forward? How do I make more money? How do I, we also were never on a commission structure there at that time, like from different friends, but also from my like Midwest, entrepreneur parents. They were like, why don't you try it on your own? So then I never thought that would be my path. But then I remember us talking a little bit in those early days. And then that's really that dialogue that kept going. We co-represented 2 artists. And that was kind of the lunch meeting that one day where it was just like checking in as gallery owners, me like 10 years on, you, I think 12. I was trying to get the lay of the land about West Coast galleries for some of my artists. A couple of invites were in, we were having these conversations. I'm like, can you help me understand the lay of the land out there? And that's when she was like, you know what if we did something together? And that kind of organically just happened out of that conversation of me asking her thoughts on a couple spots. And 6 weeks later, I don't remember exactly how long, I was like, I can't get that idea out of my mind, and that felt so exciting. And she was like, okay, well, let's actually talk about it. And then that's what we spent our whole summer doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last summer?
Last summer.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we went through a kind of like formal discovery process. I think, where we really looked at our businesses, probably more directly than either of us had ever looked at our businesses prior to that, and thought strategically about like, does this make sense? I think intuitively there was a sense that this was something we were interested in. There's obviously, we have a history of collaboration around artist representation. We've done art fair booths together. So we really understood already that we had similar value system, that we wanted to work with artists in the same way, that we wanted to kind of build galleries towards similar goals. But, we wanted to also look underneath the hood or whatever to make sure that the choices that we were making were really smart, because we built these things in collaboration with our artists, and whatever choices we make really affect them, and we need to make smart choices in order to respect also the trust that they've put in us.
You made me think of 2 things. One, business plan. Any other business can I'm going to make a business plan. Even this podcast, we're going to make a business plan. How it is so hard to make a business plan with a gallery, because people will be like, how many, of these are you going to sell? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, hopefully all, maybe one, so you it's so hard to say that. And then I would get to these moments where well, then you say the number, just say what you think you're going to say, and then you say that, and then you don't meet the goal. And then I'm like, what is this exercise all about? Yeah. Well, do that 10 years on, you've got 10 years of data. It was so thrilling, because that was so hard to kind of fabricate that data from the beginning. And then we really impressed ourselves. We're like, wow, we really built these strong things. And then looking back at how lean and mean it was in the beginning, especially for me, I was like, how did I even get through that? And then but then it was same thing, these ebbs and flows. And if you kind of plotted our data together, there were interesting kind of counterparts, but then some kind of freakily matched up, our average sales. And this is a really good idea. I think more than we even knew, and actually kind of showed, I think, both of us what a healthy growth model could look like.
Yeah.
Because that's the hard part. But we can kind of expand and contract in these kind of clever ways. And so this showed us that there was this super efficient way to expand, but it feels still real.
I think we had both kind of grown as much as we could grow before we needed to really bring in more of a robust team.
Yeah.
But when you look at that, it's really hard to bring someone in at a very high level at the tier of the ecosystem that we're in. You know, it came also out of this extraordinary mutual respect for one another. You know, like I've worked with Bridget. She works incredibly hard.
Yeah.
She also accomplishes extraordinary feats. And I would never have been able to hire her. I couldn't afford her.
Yeah.
And
definitely the same the other way.
and so in a way, it was this kind of brilliant move where we got to like hire each other.
Yeah.
And so now we both have, you know, because also we work in different cities. So there's this opportunity to kind of like bridge these regions, and her artists get representation in LA, and my artists who even are already represented in New York. I mean, Bridget is such an extraordinary advocate for the artists she represents, and they get Bridget on their team.
Yeah.
It would have been impossible for us to ever hire someone that could do as much as I think Bridget can do with where we are.
Yeah, and the same thing, that like the ethics and the like knowing, that's really hard to hire someone either your, you know, generation above you, your peer, or someone lower, and just like get all of that. Like we have such a shared knowledge of like the background that we work in, like the way we think this job is done properly. But Hannah has this other kind of precision and like connoisseurship that elevates, I think, my conversation and deeper like knowledge of art history. It's like it becomes this really complementary thing that's like you get. So it's not only been like that higher piece, which is so true, because it's not only could we not budget for that payroll, but it's like probably wouldn't be doing it. So, you know, like because you would work at a bigger scale, you know, it's like it wouldn't necessarily make sense at this time of your career. So then it's such a like win-win ad, you know, and like, but yeah, I think that piece too about just having worked with someone, we all know that from having jobs. You're like, that's the one I want to work with. You know, that's so you just like, that's not going to be a drag on this, this kind of ship we're sailing here. So
yeah, but we kind of kept coming back to this line, like everything changes and nothing changes. And like, that is the truth, you know, behind the scenes, like a lot has changed, you know, just the way that we can talk through decisions and therefore sort of look at it from all angles. That's an incredible process to add into our decision making. But then from the outside, it's like all the staff came with us, all the artists came with us, all the spaces came with us. That's kind of stable. But behind the scenes, it feels so dynamic in a way that, you know, after doing it for 10 plus years on our own, like it's a real gift to have someone who I respect so much to have as a conversation partner.
Yeah. Wow. Or like people at the wheel. Like I thought about this too. What if something happened and I gotta be like, I gotta dip for 2 weeks?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I sometimes, and I was using this metaphor back in New York. I'm like, I feel like Hannah, like, you know, you're like be talking on the edge of your porch and someone's like, whoa, you're getting a little close to the edge there. You know, like I was like, it's kind of like that metaphorically. Like she kind of brought me in because I was like, what if I'm just like, going on doing my thing, fall off the, you know, for whatever reason, like a real situation, you know, family. I don't know. It just kind of made me be like, there's this other way where you can be like, hey, hold on. I'm going to go do this for 2 weeks. Can you take the wheel?
And that actually brings so much more energy to the table. And that's what's kind of interesting is that there was a kind of initial like, oh my gosh, this is a lot, because we both basically doubled our programs overnight. And I think we both feel such a responsibility to be very knowledgeable about the artists that we work with. And so there still is a bit of like learning, which neither one of us has done for quite a while, because we've just kind of been building our programs on our own.
And it's neat because that's the other complementary part. Like in some instances, you had a few decades of artworks to cull from in different periods of, you know, in context and like different bodies of work, where then Hannah had a few newer, younger artists where it's just the beginning, you know, and it's so different.
You guys both were independently, you know, surviving, thriving in various stages of your own galleries. You merge. It's a splashy headline. I think as far as I can tell, it's been very celebrated and people have really admired your choice to do that. But getting down to brass tacks, like, okay, so is the intent to make more money for the two of you?
I think the intent is to provide more scaffolding of support, and part of that is sales.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you know.
Good answer.
Yeah. And because, I mean, the contact list and the fact that Hannah built her gallery on the West Coast, oftentimes relationships that I had in place or as life would have me travel, I was going to Europe. So, and doing fairs there. And, you know, that's the real, I think, potential for growth.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my people, they might have 1, 2, 3 things by an artist.
In the same way that like maybe you as a collector have a kind of like dream list of artists, we also have our own list of like, oh, I would love to see this artist in that collection.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those are collectors or collections that I don't have a relationship with. And it's amazing because now perhaps Bridget does. So I get to say like, you know, I've always thought that this artist, I'd love to share this artist with this particular person. I've never known them. You know them. Would you have that conversation?
Yeah.
So sometimes just as simple as that allows the business to be healthier, stronger, more robust, more sales, you know? And
or say like genre specific too. Like I show a lot of video. So then we get an artist making video at Hannah's. I can get back on the phone and be like, hey, curious if you ever looked at this. And then I have a new thing to offer them. What I've loved about like a decade on, it's like you can kind of say, hey, let's talk. Like we haven't done anything for a while. And we can say like, are you buying things right now? So a big part of what we've been doing for the past few months is checking in with people to sort of get where they're going. Like we did this merger. I'm curious where you're at. I know like I haven't seen you in a while. And then they might, you know, some people are saying, you're right. Honestly, we've kind of been in the blue chip zone. We're sort of buying less at higher price points. Good information. Then we can go back to the table. And now that I have a business partner, we can really sit down and be like, hey, this person, so turns out they're doing this. Why don't we show them this? And that's what we're talking about with this healthy growth. That feels so great.
Yeah.
Both of us, our programs doubled overnight, and we doubled our exhibition spaces that we're responsible for. So there is a little bit of like, oh, wow, we did just go from kind of having to smaller ships to like kind of a bigger machine, which was part of the point. But there is a bit of a reprieve in just knowing that someone else has my back.
Yeah. Does it allow you to be on the road, to be dynamically back and forth in new ways from coast to coast? Or is it more you're each kind of assigned to your regions?
We've each made one trip so far. I went to New York in the summer to meet the team and kind of get through some pre-merger, and Bridget has been here this week.
Solid. Okay.
And it was more like the idea wasn't to be back and forth. Like it was like stay down, hold down the fort in the zone where you were.
We're fortunate because I think some colleagues have expanded and they're one principal. And then that's a lot of responsibility because you're trying to be everywhere at once.
Yeah.
And we don't have that problem. So I actually like that we're kind of in our specific regions.
Everyone I've talked to that are fans and curious about your businesses, supporters of your businesses, everyone just, I think, is excited to see what you do next. And so...
Yeah.
I
think that's why we're here, because you're so enthusiastic, and it's just like this energy flow where it's like, and we're like, oh my God, that, and you want to tap in with people at that enthusiasm.
I got to just tell like one fun story, a story about Hannah. It's an early Friday Heater story.
Oh God.
And so Hannah and I were on like this committee at the Hammer Museum together, and I just felt like, oh, I got to be on my game. Like I was very much the newbie. I was just learning about art. Then once Heater started and we started bopping around and being kind of silly and playful, trying to open up the doors to more people to the art world, I pitched you. It might have been, I think, the Olga Belima show first. And you were like so down and thought it was a great idea, where at the time I had not gotten the same reception from a lot of other gallerists.
Well, you're a person that has so much integrity.
Well,
I mean, how can you not be open and responsive to that? I mean, I do appreciate like curiosity, especially for complex practices. But that's nice to know that I was nice.
Yeah. But I just didn't expect, I was just like kind of prepping, nervous, like, all right, then like be on it. And you were just like, oh yeah, totally. This would be great. Yeah, come on in. And we've talked about like, how could we talk about prices of art to the public to help wrap people's head around it? But I think people are still curious about how the industry works and how you guys create business. And so it's like, that piece of art sold for $10,000 or $30,000 or $1,500.
As a gallery, we're always happy to provide pricing information. I know that like it sometimes feels so intimidating, especially in galleries where there's a real front desk, and I've had the experience myself when I was younger where I was trying to educate myself on pricing, and I would go into a Chelsea gallery and I would say, could I ask you how much these are? And they would say, well, we'll have to call a director down to talk to you. And it is so intimidating to then know that you're kind of bothering someone. But ultimately speaking, that's why we're there. And if you're curious, we want to help make that information available to you. And I do think it was part of understanding pricing is simply learning about different prices for different artists from different galleries. And then all of a sudden a system does start to emerge because there is a logic to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not just kind of like pulling numbers out of the air.
Yeah.
We really are looking at, okay, you start at between, I would say, 2,500 and 5,000 if someone's like very, very emerging. And over time, the price goes up. And the price goes up because maybe the production changes a little bit, like they get bigger, or more likely there's support for the artist's work.
Yeah, there's demand.
And there's demand.
Yeah.
So collectors are acquiring it, institutions are acquiring it, exhibitions are happening. And bit by bit, the prices are raised.
Both Hannah and I have artists who don't want the prices to go too high, so specifically ask to keep things low and slow.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but that's something that, and then that's our partner in this, so then we do it. And so sometimes, no matter what our professional advice is, you have to kind of bring it into an agreement with that artist.
We're not really looking at like the cost of making a work in relationship to like how it's priced. It's really, everything starts kind of at and around 5,000, and then you kind of slowly over time raise the prices, ideally safely and in conversation with other support.
Sometimes artists have emotional attachments to things. People say, wow, that's a little bit high. And I have said before, it's a bit of a protective price. This one's really special to her. And she and that people that get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm trying to do anything shady over here.
Someone once said to me really early on when I was about to open, it's not about the hardware, it's about the software. So I think there has been a bit of a fascination over the last few years with new buildings and new locations and this idea of expansion. I don't think that resonates with either of us. I think we really are interested in putting our energy and our resources into the artists, not hence the fact that we didn't open a new space when we merged.
The dynamism of the modern day artist and creative is so broad and so dynamic. Getting to be a manager and partner and agents in that feels really exciting.
You didn't ask this question yet. I don't know if you will, but you did write.
Oh, yes.
About if either of us had ever had an artist poached or something like that, taken by a bigger guy, which neither of us have.
Yes, so have either of you ever had an artist poached from your roster?
No, neither one of us have.
And so you were saying,
at the time of recording,
at the time of recording, the artists that we work with, there is a lot of trust and a lot of dialogue and a lot of rapport, and we have partnered with bigger galleries. And that have allowed them to expand into new conversations. And so this idea feels very mirror image of that idea, I would say. And our artists, maybe they don't want to go just only be represented by some big agent. They want to have a relationship to Bridget, who they've worked with for 10 years, who maybe did some of their first shows.
My attitude is really, tell me what you want to do. Let's make it happen. And if that is like, I want a big gallery in this place, I'm going to try and make that happen.
We want to grow with our artists and we want them to grow.
Yeah.
And we think we can do it all together. Yeah.
Man, I would be so hyped if I was one of your guys' artists. I mean, I just
get them on the couch.
With you guys. Yeah, I mean, just getting to sit with you guys and hear your take on things and how thoughtful you both are and the savviness that you have. For any of your artists that are watching, I just feel like you're in a great spot. So you're cultivating a list of clients who buy work from you. As a gallerist, like, how many names do you need on that list? Like, when does a gallery become viable to consistently have shows? Do you need a couple hundred people on that list of buyers, 1,000?
I remember when there was some moment over the last 20 years where things were sort of, they had gone up and they were going down. And I can't remember who said this, but the conversation came up like, what do you need to sustain a gallery?
Yeah.
And it became so clear that most galleries need like 4 great collectors. And if you have 4 or 5 great collectors that are like consistently supporting the program, consistently buying from exhibitions, like that can sustain a gallery for quite a while. And those are the collectors that I would say, as the gallery gains prominence, as the artists kind of progress in their career, they get access to early opportunities around really significant acquisitions. So that loyalty is reciprocated when it's meaningful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take as much as people think.
Yeah, wow.
And a couple great collectors who are really dedicated can help ensure that a gallery kind of is like, operating for a long time.
It's shocking because our lists, of course, are in the like maybe 1,000 now.
Yeah, we have a lot of names.
We were probably shy of that, but coming together, we were taking a lot of stock in that. And it is funny because the amount of people that you're reaching to just let them know about the exhibition and then met with just like a very small percentage of buyer that you need. Like I remember being at art fairs, you know, you're just like hundreds of people and you're like, I actually only need one person to come and buy one thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's then it starts kind of spiraling in your mind like, well, how is this thing working? But it's our duty, and that's another part of that. So the initial kind of question, like to kind of keep educating and spreading that information, because of course a lot of great collectors have been following, and we're finding that with the show we're working on right now. People are like, actually now's the time. And it's like, I've been talking to someone about you know, Lynn Hirschman Leeson for over 10 years, and they're deciding right now. So you have to kind of keep that dialogue going, because people are doing their research or letting it soak in. They're familiarizing themselves with images that maybe felt unfamiliar now, but now they're, you know, getting into it. So that's other part of that. Those communication lines.
Yeah, I resonate with that. Just even as like a young collector myself, you get that initial excitement, start plugging in with the world, collecting art, and then you start running out of wall space and you get a little more discerning. Your interest continues to grow and you see more stuff, but you just need more time. Like I just feel like I need more bandwidth, more time to process. Being fans of both of you, it's like I track everything that you're doing.
Yeah, sometimes people need to kind of got to get your appetite back, you know. I always relate it to like, oh, like someone ate too much, they need to kind of relax for a second. And it's like digest, and like intellectually, what did you do, or how did this last kind of round like maybe allow you to pivot into some other lane or reflect on something, like a preoccupation you didn't see was there before, and so now what you really want to get into is this other thing, you know. It's like they're, and just giving people kind of space to do that kind of thinking. And because I think that's how you keep someone on board. You just keep this kind of authentic exchange and understanding going about what you're excited about, but also what you're thinking about. And that takes different time, kind of cadence and pace. And
How long have you been selling art for, each of you individually?
I've probably worked in this field. I started working in 2008. I obviously worked for people. I had like assistant roles at that moment in time. And so it probably has been more like 2012, that's when my gallery opened. So that would have been 2010, maybe, that I really was like, oh, I sold a work of art.
Yeah. Mine would have been 2008. I got my first sales position then. Long time. Yeah. It's like 18 years. I still remember the first ones. It's like such a thrill. I think also it's so exciting to sell art when you can turn around and tell the artist you sold it. You know, that is like forever just this thrill that I love about our sector of the art world. Like, you made it, I sell it, you buy it. We could all stand here and be like, that just happened. We did that. And it's transparent. And I think it's such a thrill about selling art.
What's that like to graduate from maybe an assistant role at a gallery to getting your first chance to try to sell something?
At that moment in my life, I was working at Gavin Brown's Enterprise, where we met. We met before, but where we worked together and really got to know one another. And it was a relatively informal environment. So it wasn't as though you were like given an assistant role and then you kind of like proved your way through and received like promotions all along. It was a little bit more like you're kind of thrown into it. And if you showed an aptitude or an interest, then that was kind of, you were encouraged to kind of like move in that direction. And so I feel like I just was curious about how it would work and kind of started having conversations with collectors. I really still enjoy that experience of like having someone walk in the gallery, standing in front of a work of art and talking about like what it is doing and why it is doing that thing. And so it was like through that then it just kind of a few sales opportunities arose, and I was kind of coached from behind the scenes, like, okay, now say this, now do that. And then it clicked. It was great. So exciting.
Same. I sort of put my hat into a ring for a sales job and then got it based on working at a blue chip gallery before. So then I think that was part of maybe an interesting kind of background and pedigree. Like, you kind of know who people are. When you kind of are able to sort of identify key players, curators, museum, collector, you know, and you can start identifying that. That's a big part of like that entry level aspect, because maybe you can grab someone, or you know who's there, you know who you're talking to, and then you just watch your peers. And that's what's fun about being at fairs. You see, and everyone has their own style. For me, it's like being that kind of conduit, because you spend a lot of time with artists. So hearing what they have to say and then being able to translate that to someone like you and be like, oh, she told me this interesting thing. And then, you know, and I'm kind of relaying anecdotes. And sometimes it's usually like, like if you would come to the gallery, it's like me and you fanning out about this other thing together. It's not like I'm like, let me tell you a thing. We're like, isn't this crazy? And like, because I'm sometimes still in the state of like the audience where I'm like, I know, I can't believe it, and look at this, or I just saw this, or, and we're kind of in live real time being the audience together.
Yeah. Yeah, you figure by the time somebody builds up the muster to walk into a gallery, there's some curiosity and interest already at play for them.
That's why I think it's so important that we're free and open to the public.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of gets away with that entry level barrier maybe, or, some kind of like an entrance fee, or, sometimes people call and say, is there a ticket, or do I have to make a reservation, or things like that. And that excites me because it's just like, no, come on in. And if you're not into it, leave or stay all day. It's like low risk.
I think when I first learned that you could walk into a gallery or a museum and like give it 15 to 20, get a lot out of it, and then like get on your way.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, whoa, I didn't, I just assumed that I had to go in and lock in for like 2 hours. And it was like, I can't do that,
Sometimes it is nice to like walk in and like let it wash over you and then kind of step back out into the world and feel the difference between those two spaces, and like what emerges in that moment can be as insightful as whatever you would discover standing in front of the object having like a locked in experience. The contrast.
But I was the same way. I always thought like I have to read all the labels. I have to, and I think that's probably, I didn't really have a formal art history background. So I always felt like, oh, I have to catch up. I have to like read all this stuff. And the beauty of, being in an art community, you learn from so many other people. And if you're around things that are brand new, it's like you're part of that kind of first language around the work. And I think I lost that hang up about like having to educate myself through every exhibition and kind of push myself into things. And I kind of got a little more free and like, no, just go in and be with the works you like, and kind of stay in that zone. You don't have to like force yourself through the encyclopedic experience,
It is also, I think, like one of the most important things you can do if you're trying to develop a relationship with art in some capacity is just to see shows.
Yeah.
See shows everywhere. See shows when you're traveling, see shows in your hometown. And eventually you start to develop like a kind of context in which to understand new things that you encounter. It takes time. And you do just kind of go in and you keep exploring and you keep experiencing. And then eventually you develop a kind of confidence in it. And you have to trust that like over time that will develop.
Yeah. Does it feel like a sales job to you guys at this stage of your career? Or is it more of this like experience and relationships? And
I think our merger made it feel more like a sales job to me. Now we have an expanded team. So I was saying today, it's like things are happening now at the gallery that I had nothing to do with, like an email blast going out, like a shipment happening. Like, and when my smaller team, I had like a hand in everything. So whereas now I get to sort of go back into a sales channel, and it's helpful because when I was doing so many things, I have my own kind of rhythm that emerged, but it wasn't as like seeing myself just in that role, where now I get to be in that role, which is where I want to be. If I, went and worked at a bigger gallery where maybe you only get to work with this inventory and you only get to work with these clients and you only get to, there's kind of more bounds around that. We don't have that. Like there is that kind of boundlessness of, I don't feel like I'm just talking to you as a salesperson. It's like it can have an expansive conversation, and that can go to life, but also to other areas of the gallery or other, artworks. And I don't know, I think that feels really amazing. So it's more like a benefit to kind of be able to return back to that just a sales role.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more organic and permeable as a role that kind of sits under the umbrella of the larger roles that we do. But I still really love it. I mean, I still really love meeting someone new, understanding what they're interested in, trying to communicate to them what I'm interested in or what the artist is interested in, and finding those moments of overlap. I do think it's very rewarding to sell something and to know that it's going directdirectly back to the artist.
Yeah.
That just feels very tangible as a success. You're like, okay, well, they're going to pay rent that month, and or they're going to be able to buy that new material that they're really curious about. I love the kind of directness of the scaffolding of support that we create for the artists that we work with, and sales are an integral part of that. So is it so like unfastened from what we're doing as something that I'm like excited to do? I don't know, but it's like so embedded and integral to this constellation that we're building that it maintains a sense of excitement within me.
Yeah.
So
it is funny because even that hearing that helps me be like, but then there are people that you love hanging out with, you love talking about art, sometimes those are people that are buying a lot of art, but they're not buying anything from you. And at some point I have to be like, hey, I want to talk about Sarah Lucas all day. I'm a huge fan. I got to go sell some art right now. You know, so then you sometimes have to find like a boundary where, similarly with artists, it cuts to the bone quick because people are making art from like a really intimate, you know, personal space. And so you go there with them sometimes. And sometimes you have to be like, okay, heavy, like I got to pull out and I got to go figure out how to sell something for you to help this, you know? And so it's like, that could be a really positive thing. Like, remember, you're a salesperson.
Well, there's no like other way for the business to exist.
Right.
I mean, there's no other like secret funding source.
Remind me of that too.
So it is what we do. And it can be really exciting to, you know, to bring something in that challenges what is knowable by the market and to kind of think about how to talk with people about what's happening in a way that it can be acquired. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like that's how we pay our rent. That's how we pay payroll.
And like that transaction moment means a lot more than just like buying the thing at the place. You know, like oftentimes it codifies it into this moment. That's what's so exciting about certain transaction or sales that happen around something that might not feel like it's there for that. When you walk into a gallery or space and you think, oh, there's nothing to buy here, or there's no way this could be, you know, and it's like, but what if it was? Some of the most exciting conversations is at that level. Yeah. Where someone is like, yes, because the artist is telling you, you're having that moment, you go put it in this thing, and then someone else has that moment, and then you all like make it happen.
As you're talking to, it makes me think of like, for any art collectors that are listening or aspiring art collectors, the collector or the person who's buying the art gets to feel good about supporting that artist's practice.
Yeah.
It's really important. I mean, you know, two things kind of come to mind. I mean, one is just that if you are living in a place where you want a kind of nuanced cultural conversation, then part of the way to support that or encourage it to happen is to like make acquisitions from galleries that are representing artists that are pushing at the boundaries, you know. And then the flip side is, you know, in the last few years, we have seen so many extraordinary colleagues close their galleries. Yeah. And we hear from them over and over and over again that like when they announce that they're closing, they get this flood of letters like, your program is so amazing, I can't believe it, like you were so important to me. But all of those accolades didn't actually translate into sales when they were operating. And so I'm like, what is the disconnect? Like if you really are appreciating what this program is bringing to the table, like the easiest way to ensure that it continues to exist is to buy something. And that's where we get to all do this together. Yeah. And it's cool.
Something that surprised me when I started getting involved in the art world, that bodies in the room matter. And so just like buying a ticket to support a band that you're a fan of or getting that live experience, it's kind of the same with galleries. The culture of the street team or whatever carries weight. And so I think that was something else that I didn't fully appreciate until getting into the art world, that like galleries are just open and you know, there's always opportunities to plug in.
Yeah.
Would you say there's like a through line of messaging through the artists you choose to work with that like resonates?
I feel like you have such a good answer to how you think about artists, and it's really struck a chord with me.
Well, sometimes I think about the word like novelty. You know, like I think I got a little bit too maybe hung up on that in the early days of like, this looks like nothing else. I remember a colleague of ours that's like senior to us telling me like, why do you make it so hard for yourself? You know, and it's like, because the market likes things that it's seen before and like it already know, you know, this kind of repetition. And I think I felt so quasi obsessed with bringing something that didn't feel like anything we saw anywhere else. Because it's like, isn't that what the artist is trying to do? Aren't we all trying to bring something new to that? Yeah. Then beyond that part of kind of novelty, I did notice, I think after a few years, like handmade or kind of like, I would want to say like impoverished materials, like vis-a-vis like an art to povera movement or something where it's like, there's something for me in like a lo-fi quality that then could have just like this boundless kind of inspiration to other things, or it like activates our mind in another way. A lot of the artists have kind of a handmade quality to it, but then I could instantly find examples that aren't that, you know, but I think Hannah will have an appreciation for like a beautiful object when something is kind of put into form and can speak to those things, where I think I am so persuaded and kind of fall into like the bigger arc of the artist projects.
I really am moved by your interest in the mysterious or the unknowable, and like your desire to seek that out, because it is so easy to find art that feels like affirming to your point of view, but it is the opportunity to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
And that is like a very exciting way to think about what new artists to spend more time learning about.
But sometimes in those spaces where it's like a glitch or like there's something kind of an uncanny, unregistered thought where then you are thinking about it for a long time. And that's why, I mean, certain collectors that get that, it's like so impressive, because I think sometimes that's the art I want to work with and be around, because I am challenged by it. And it's like, I will just keep thinking about it. I'm trying to figure it out.
I was watching this like William Forsythe documentary, and he was talking about his own, he's a choreographer. He was talking about his own kind of like draw towards dance practices that you have to grapple with, was like the word he used. I thought was such an extraordinary kind of like understanding. And I think about it a lot because I am a sort of a big fan of dance. And so I think about it a lot as like the difference between Balanchine and Merce Cunningham. So like Balanchine, kind of the classic mid-century choreographer who was choreographing in New York for big companies. And it does, like, you could go see a Balanchine ballet with your mom and everyone would love it and it would be like a beautiful experience. But it's also very knowable what you're about to walk into. Versus, you know, Merce Cunningham, especially when that work was first emerging on scene, you know, you would show up and there would be like 20 people doing different solos at the same time. And it was kind of confusing and you didn't know which one to focus on. But what you were experiencing was happening for the first time in that moment. And that, like, seeking out that feeling is maybe like a big driving force.
I really relate to that.
But then I think there's also the really practical part, which is that I like working with artists where I feel like it can be truly additive. I really want to feel as though like what I am doing is meeting them at the moment that they're in, and we can do something together that is, you know, they're not kind of like I'm not riding on their coattails or vice versa. Like, we're really going to build something in partnership. And so that can kind of happen at different stages in an artist's career. And I will honestly say I've gone to studios and been moved by practices and then felt like, but I'm not the right person for this. And that isn't like a dismissal of what they're doing. It's simply about like also where I am in my life and what I can bring to the table.
How do you feel most additive, or what is your favorite part about being additive?
There's many things I like to do, but one thing that I really do enjoy is working with artists relatively early on. I also like working with artists who have long established practices. Maybe they are kind of emerging in the market sense, but specifically something that I've enjoyed recently is working with artists maybe the first year or two out of grad school, because I do feel like that's a kind of sensitive, fragile time where you aren't really educated in grad school as an artist about the realities of the art market or being a practicing artist. And I do enjoy having conversations with artists about like, what are the right next steps? I think we have a responsibility to help artists build long-term careers, not just immediate kind of success stories. And those paths look very different in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's one area that I found myself really enjoying. But like I said just a second ago, sometimes the idea of like emerging isn't necessarily tied to age. Because you can work with artists that are 60, 70, 80 years old, but they're as kind of like emerging in terms of maybe they've been working without as much structure around their practice, or maybe their ideas are finally meeting a generation that can understand them. And that also kind of has a similar chime to it in terms of like what that work looks like on our end.
What types of things are you advising or pushing or pulling on with an artist?
We're rarely advising them on the work.
Okay.
I mean, that's not what I'm not here to help an artist make their art. I mean, I'm not an artist for a reason. So I trust them. I mean, I'm following their lead. It's more like, hey, this exhibition opportunity, like this institution reached out and they're interested in including you in this group show. Let's talk through if you feel as though the premise of the group show resonates with what you're trying to do.
How do you feel about being in an office building? Like it is a bank. Like, is that, and then you're kind of like, should I put you forward for that? You know, kind of that. And then you learn pretty quick, like, absolutely not. I don't, or yeah, I'm down. And then that helps you pitch on their behalf to other kind of contexts. Because I think that's a big part too, just like being out in the world and actively just finding opportunities for the artist too.
But I love making exhibitions. I don't know about you. It's like, that's to me the one thing that like installation days when we're installing the next show, it really is, no matter what feeling I have about the world at large. I walk in really excited to be with the artist or be with the work and put it up on the wall. A learning process really happens in that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you look for artists who already have an audience.
I wonder if you look for artists who already have an audience, or do you look to build
that's
an
interesting
audience
because
for
social
an
media has been
artist?
its own runaway train for the 20 years I've been in this business. But I've heard authors that don't get a book deal because they don't have a social media following. I mean, that is not at all part of either of our things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's more about deep, passionate interest in the art that will actually just, and I think we had talked to before about like what gives you energy and the kind of fuel in your tank. And it's like that I will live on for years. There are some shows where it's like, and Hannah has really recognized that about the program. If you look at the numbers don't maybe line up with how important that messaging has been for my gallery or something, and what that does programmatically to provide context for other things. And that is a kind of nonlinear narrative we're telling the world. And it sort of, I think, helps people plot where your ethics are, where your heart is on the matter, that those other things are in the mix. So then that's what you're really doing all together, is like keeps building that context.
Well, I think it's another badass check in your favor of like neither of you are squeamish about partnering with an artist that the work is very compelling to you, not knowing if it's going to be a business success.
I get really resentful of like pushing artists to do all the things, like be the spokesperson for their work and go on camera. And it's like they chose a form. They're making this art object. Sometimes that's a performance piece. Sometimes that involves them talking or doing something. But I think it's like to really understand when and where their work began, but also stop. So then you can take over. Or at other galleries, be like, well, of course, like that person's out there doing all these things. You kind of crediting or blaming an artist that they're not out there doing their own promotion, or they don't have enough big enough audience or something. And I think that is shit, like a shitty thing to say. It's like that's not their job. They made this art thing, but that is more complicated. Just generationally, the younger artists, they've kind of learned a different way to participate in their own media and promotion, to package their art sometimes in a way. And I feel lucky that I'm a bit old enough to have known the old school when that wasn't, we're somewhere in between. Like we also aren't the people that are like, leave your work at the door and we'll be installing this, unknowing artist. It's like, we're very excited to install the show with the artist. Yeah. It's also not like, get in there, artist, and do your own thing and make a TikTok reel and get your friends. It's like, there's that space in the middle.
One fun thing I just wanted to try I haven't done this yet, but friends and family and I get together and we have these, Heartstone dinners, and there's these fancy looking bag of clay hearts with they have words printed on them. And it's always been a delight of mine to gather friends and family, and basically it's a time to reflect on the past year and then kind of forecast what people are excited about for the next year. And it's oftentimes been very exciting to see the words that people end up with and how they show up then in their lives. So I was like, we should do that on the podcast with guests. Like everyone could draw a heartstone when they're
I've been eyeing that
here.
little pouch.
So they're made at I think a convent in Oregon, but I have seen these words show up in people's lives in really like special, meaningful ways. And so it's...
Oh, I'm excited.
We're into the woo.
We are. I know.
Woo, yeah.
I know. It's true. I mean, I moved to LA for a reason. So.
Revealing? Not revealing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So
You first.
I'm scared. Change.
Oh, wow. That's really good. Do you want a moment? Do you want to talk about that anymore?
Yeah. It's clearly on brand at the moment. Anything beyond kind of
actually
the obvious?
For my whole life, a real mantra or reaction to people going through hard times, like change is good. It's breakups or death. It's like it just forces a change. But I think that's a way to a new growth, and it is expansive. And so we were just talking about expansion or like growth, but there is this kind of expansiveness that none of us know we're capable of. But like change kind of puts us into that space where it's like, you didn't know you could love that much. You didn't know you could care that much. You didn't know you could work that hard. You didn't know, and these other, I think change is such a great impetus for a lot of like other positive things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of pressure.
Very on the nose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you're
You were joking about
The words that could be in there.
earlier.
Mine says compassion.
Oh.
maybe they're not so good.
It's like,
Man, big word.
I'm going to have to see how this one I'm worried about this word. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to be required to extend compassion in a way that I'm not anticipating?
Were you planning on rolling that back this year?
Yeah, no, but like if I'm gonna be honest, it's like
Good call out.
Yeah, you're like, this year I was really not gonna go for compassion. Gonna rein that one in a little bit. No, but it's just like, I mean, the world at this moment in time is constantly asking us for more and more space for compassion. And so to be asked for even more, I'm like, whoa, what does that mean is coming?
Hannah's deeply compassionate about world issues that more than that, and can speak really strongly about that. So I think
being from Texas, I grew up in an environment that was really antagonistic towards what my own value system. And so it was from a very early age, I felt like radicalized by that experience, of growing up where like so many people's human rights were not recognized or money was really seen as a priority over social values.
Do you struggle to like feel compassion from others? Or
or for?
From. You immediately took that word to sort of the responsibility for you to
and that's why I own my own business, because it's like I always like take the responsibility on. But no, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm going to observe that in my life.
Self-compassion.
Yeah,
receive compassion more than you've allowed yourself to.
See, you two thought I was like withholding, but maybe you need to give me more compassion. Wow. Okay, cool. I can't wait to put this on it'll go in my little picture shelf.
I'm jumping all over the place. How did you decide the order?
Oh, the order. Actually, that was quite a kind of like labored over process, I would say. But I don't know.
Sounded better.
It sounded better.
Wait, someone did say Hoffahue as the Brangelina.
Oh, really?
Somebody did say that to me.
Wait, I do have to say, this maybe should be cut just because it's like dumb. But when you were asking about like critiques of the merger, there is a contemporary art Reddit thread that you can go on.
Oh, cool.
And it's getting updated constantly. You can go on and see it. And when the merger came out, there was like a little bit of a scathing like a thread or whatever. And my favorite one was one comment was like, lightweight roster gonna close. And I was like,
I wanted to give out. I was like, oh yeah, let's like shout out on the pod. Username.
I couldn't find it.
And then we think it was deleted.
Yeah, we think it was deleted. But I was just like, we can talk about like the history of Bridget's program or whatever. But it's like these are incredibly
heavy hitters, lightweight.
And
it's all relative.
Yeah, I feel like the artists we work with, that's maybe one thing I wouldn't lob in their direction is lightweight. So.
Smart.
If I was an artist on your roster, I would be so hyped. And if you're an artist out there on these guys' roster, be hyped, because I'm hyped. I'm so excited sitting here and getting to listen to you guys and be involved and supportive and help tell your story. So thanks for being on the podcast today. Can't wait to see what you guys get up to this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
I'm happy to be here. We appreciate it.